Hello, my name is Rosie Mason, and I'm a dancer and a choreographer and activist. And I have a brand called All Mixed Up, which focuses on celebrating mixed heritage and doing anti-racism and anti-discrimination work through social media and through YouTube videos, and also looking at how I can involve my art, which is dance, and kind of pair the two of art and activism together.
Hi, my name's Amelia. I'm 18 years old. I'm currently at sixth form, and I am sort of involved with the Young Activist Network through Right Here, Right Now, which is a group that aims to bring young people who are interested in creative writing together, workshops, and in these workshops we sort of use our writing as a tool for activism. And so yeah, that's kind of where my interest is in, through how we can use writing as a tool for activism. So should I go on to my one now? Just to give you a little bit of a presentation about my activism.
Is Sarah gonna introduce herself while she's here?
Do I need to do a second introduction for the recording? I'm just going to repeat the same thing. Hi, I'm Sarah. I work with the Young Activist Network. Our aim is to support and connect young people who are working for social justice. We're based in Norfolk, young people all over the world, and we can provide support in a lot of different ways. So providing resources, like to meet, through putting on workshops like this, through organising training for young activists, and also for putting on activities that can help support young people's well-being and make sure that they avoid burnout.
Thank you. So we have a couple of things that we'd like to share with you today. So I've got some of my activism work, and Amelia's got some to share as well. I think we're going to start with Amelia's got a presentation for us.
Thanks, Rosie. I'll just share my screen. Hopefully you guys see. So yeah, I'm going to be talking to you a little bit about activism and writing. And so obviously it's a tool that I use activism, and this might not be something that everyone here is interested in. It might not be your choice, but hopefully there might be a few aspects of that. So just a little bit about me, so how I got into activism. So ever since I was little, I've always loved reading, I've always loved writing, and I've always been quite passionate about the world around me, quite interested in things like politics and society. But it wasn't really until quite recently that I started to think about how I could join these two areas of interest. And so I think it's quite important to know that I haven't been an activist for ages. I'm not the world's most experienced activist. So yeah, some of the different things that I've done, I've mentioned Right Here, Right Now. I also do quite a lot of work with the National Centre for Writing, so sort of writing blogs. And I worked with them on the Handover Festival, which was a festival that a group of young people programmed, basically exploring literature and activism. So yeah, it's just a little example of some of the things that I've done. So in terms of projects and the sort of things I'm interested in regards to my activism, I'd say my activism is quite varied. There isn't sort of one thing that I focus on. And some of my recent projects have included creating a storybook to help young people better understand issues relating to climate change in this county. So this was very much local to Norfolk. It was in relation to a proposed road building project. I've also done quite a few blogs, including like a recent one that I did for National Centre for Writing, and this was talking about the issues of sort of representation and diversity in literature. And then I also do sort of more creative writing pieces as well. And so I think for me, one of the reasons I love using writing as a tool for activism is that it is quite there's lots of room for experimentation, and there's lots of different sort of things within writing that you can use. So this is kind of continuing on from my previous slide and sort of thinking about why writing can be a really useful tool for activism. So reading and writing, I think, is very much connected to this idea of empathy. So when you read something, when you pick up a book, you are seeing something from another person's perspective. And I think this is a really key thing for activism, especially sort of positive activism. You are taking an issue that might be very personal to you, and you are bringing it to the attention of the people around you, the wider public, and you're trying to get them to see things from your perspective. And so I think that that is one reason why I love using writing as a tool for activism, because I think it lends itself very well to activism. Secondly, as I was talking about before, writing has a lot of variety. So for example, there's lots of different genres and tools within writing. So for example, you've got non-fiction writing such as blogs, you've got creative writing, even stuff like writing social media posts. That is still absolutely part of writing. And the possibilities have really never been more exciting. This is a really interesting time for literature and writing. We're starting to see greater representation and greater diversity and a wider collection of voices in terms of writing. And so I think it's a great time. And also by the act of writing, you're creating a mark. And so that also can be a very powerful thing as well. So this is I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the structure that I use when I'm thinking about my writing and my activism, and this is something that we might talk about later on. And obviously this structure might not work for everybody, but it's a little bit of just an insight which I thought might be quite interesting. So number one is obviously thinking about an idea or an issue that is important to you. This can sometimes be the hardest bit, and I think we might talk a little bit later about how we can come up with ideas maybe. Then I will begin to think about the type of writing that I want to use, and often sometimes I'll try and link my topic to the style of writing. So for example, haikus are often traditionally around nature, and so if I was doing something for the climate, I might want to bring those two together. I think it's often important, if you're just starting out, to choose a style that you feel comfortable in, but also if you want to step outside your comfort zone, then go for it as well. I think as well it's important to know, even though I'm talking about styles here, that having a great style doesn't, or choosing quite a fancy style like a haiku, doesn't necessarily make your writing or your activism any better. So if you just want to write, you want to write a poem, but you don't want to have any rhythm, you don't want to have any complicated structure, that is absolutely fine too. Then step 3, putting pen to paper. This can be, I think, the hardest part, and often the empty white page can seem really daunting. But I think it's really important to remember that creating anything is an accomplishment, and as young activists, we should be really proud of anything that we do. And I'll talk later about the exercise of the free write. And then number 4 is sort of sharing your work. And obviously, with activism, we are trying to raise awareness often of issues. So the sharing can be quite an important part of this. I think it's important to start with sharing your work with those you feel comfortable with. So maybe your friends, maybe your family, because it's important to build up your confidence, because obviously this work often in terms of activism is something that's personal to you. And so I think it is really important to sort of build up your confidence before you move on to the wider audience. So I just wanted to really quickly just talk about some example activities. So if you are interested by the idea of using writing as a form of activism, some of these quite quick, easy activities might be quite suited to you. So number one is the acrostic poem. So this is, you write a word down the side of your page, and then for every letter you come up with a line. So an example here. This can be very useful. It's quite a simple way. It's not too complicated. You pick an issue that you're passionate about, climate, mental health, you write it on your page, and you've got the makings of something quite powerful. And also it can work quite well as a plan as well, because here I've got different lines. I could then pick up certain lines such as transformative, and I could then develop that. Number two, manifestos. Obviously political parties, different groups create manifestos. And manifestos, I think, tend to be quite positive. It's about setting out a vision on what you want the future to look like. And so this can be quite a creative way of exploring activism. Maybe thinking about, as a young person, what would be your manifesto for change. Number three, a conversation. This is the idea that as activists and as writers, we respond to things that are going on around us. So, for example, you might see a headline in the paper that really resonates with you. You might hear a politician make a quote. You might hear a politician say something that really either inspires you or maybe really makes you angry. And this is the idea that we would then write something in response to that. So, for example, this headline by the EDP a few months ago, talking about how young people were behind the daily rise in coronavirus cases. I remember talking with my peers, and a lot of them were quite upset by this. But maybe thinking about how we can channel our frustration and our feelings, perhaps, of anger into a piece of work, into something that's quite positive. And then number four is thinking about free writing. This is the idea that you set your. This is the idea that often it can be quite difficult to come up with ideas. The blank page can seem really daunting. And so this is the idea that you get your phone, you set a timer for, say, like 5 minutes, and you just write. And you don't worry about structure, you don't worry about punctuation, you don't worry about grammar, you just write. And then at the end, you go back over and you read it. And some of it might be absolutely awful. Probably most of it will be awful. There might be a line, there might be a sentence, there might be a word even that sparks your imagination and gets you thinking. And often with this, you might have a prompt. So I put here an example one of I am calling for. And so what I would do is I'd write that at the top of my page, and then I'd try and finish that sentence. So I am calling for. And then if I got stuck doing my free write, I would just keep writing that I am calling for, until an idea came to me. So hopefully you can see here there's some example activities. Some of these might interest you. But I wanted to show here that it doesn't have to be really complicated. It can be quite a simple idea that can still be really effective. And then finally, just to finish, just some quotes to finish. So, for example, here's one: "All good art is political." This was by Toni Morrison. That's quite a controversial quote. You might not agree with it, but I picked it because I think the work of Toni Morrison is really interesting. If you haven't checked her out, she's someone who is a very fascinating character. Her books, she wrote fiction books. Her books are very much quite political in nature, sort of drawing on themes of activism. Her books often explore the legacy of slavery and colonialism, especially in regards to America. And the second quote I love because it talks about courage, and it puts courage first. And I think that as young activists, creating and sharing your work is a very daunting thing to do. And so it's really important to always, kind of pat yourself on the back and remember that what you're doing is really amazing. And if you're interested in this idea of writing and activism, then you can always check out the work of Choman Hardy, and she wrote a very powerful, quite short manifesto on why she believes poetry can be a tool for activism. So that's it. Sorry for blabbling on, but I hope there were some aspects of that were interesting for you. And if anyone wants this PowerPoint, I can always send it to you. Thank you very much. And I think Rosie's now going to talk a little bit about her activism from a different viewpoint.
Hello. Well, yes, but seeing as we had just had all of the everything that you've just shared, I wondered if like we could talk about that a little bit first. Like,
Yeah,
I know it's off the plan, but I was just feeling like I wanted to talk about it. I know one of the questions I asked you yesterday, and it was in reference to what you said was controversial at the end about the good art being political, and I know that I feel quite, I guess, sometimes insecure about the art and the work that I put out, especially I'd say dancing is my main form of art, and then I also write and make videos, but I didn't train in them, so I feel like I'm quite particular about them. So I don't know, I was just wondering what your thoughts were on obviously it's like an important quote, a powerful quote, obviously from someone very, very inspiring and someone that inspires you. But I was wondering, what your thoughts on like good art.
Yeah, well, I think it's an interesting quote, and I think there's two strands to sort of unpick, because I think, like you say, good, it's a very subjective word, because what I think is good, somebody else might think is absolutely awful. I think I would always say in terms of art that if you are creating something and it has great value because you have created something that comes from, you know, inside, and I'm always blown away when I see the work of other young activists and actually the work that anybody creates, because it's such a powerful thing to create something and then, you know, put it out and show other people. So I think in that aspect I'd probably reflecting maybe take a little bit of an issue with the quote. But the other thing I think why I do like this quote is I think sometimes we may be quite worried or nervous as individuals about creating work that is very political or work that is focuses on issues that are very personal to us. I think this quote does show actually that there is value in creating work that is political, and we should maybe embrace it. So, really interesting quote, and I totally take your point about this idea that it can be very daunting. We're always worrying about, is it good enough? So yeah.
Yeah, I think it makes sense. It's kind of like, sorry, I can hear myself twice. There we go, because you've muted now. How I guess it's not saying good art, but it kind of made me feel when you were explaining it then, that I can just call my work good, and then it's good, and then it's political, and then it's, it's me coming to this conclusion on my own, and that I don't need someone to tell me that, oh, you've written something that's really political. Like, I can just the fact that we've done it, no matter what it's about, that's kind of how that made me feel. But yeah, I'm going to show you a couple of my videos now that I made for Norfolk Black History Month, again partnered with my brand, which is just me, all mixed up. So there was two series. One was about celebrating dance of the African diaspora, and there was 4 episodes. And then there was a second series. They came out at the same time as each other, which was about, it was called Black Words Matter. And it was about word connotations, and how words get used in current society compared to how they used to be used. So I'm gonna show you, I'll show you the dance videos first. I'm not showing you all of them. I'm just showing 2 of them, and then if I feel like it, I might say something afterwards, and then I'll show you the words ones afterwards. So I've just learned how to share my screen and ticking all the right boxes. There we go. You can see it?
Dancing is in our culture. It's in our blood. People like to ask, where is your rhythm from? And I say, I am Caribbean. It is inside of me. I come from a family of dancers and artists. The dancers identify us, connect us to our tribe. The slow whine of Jamaicans, the intricate rhythms of Zimbabwe. So many differences, yet we are all united by dance. Dance of the African diaspora is just a way of talking about dance that has roots in Africa. So that includes traditional dances from those cultures, and also includes styles such as tap, the Lindy Hop, and even breaking. With such varied styles, we shouldn't technically label it all as black dance, because to my knowledge, white dance isn't a thing. And even further, if we want to categorise by continent, writing on your class posters saying, hey, I'm going to be teaching European dance today, who knows what you will end up with? Maybe ballet, flamenco, or the can-can? So how can we generalise so many styles into a group called African dance? And I will admit I have done this, and now I like to classify it by the specific cultures that inspired me. For example, Zimbabwean fusion. And in my class, I would explain how I created the choreography by combining the dance dine of the Korikori tribe in Zimbabwe with some jazz styles, including elements inspired by Fosse. Aside from word technicalities, the underlying element is that our dance is part of what unites us. It demonstrates the joy, but also the pain our individual cultures have experienced. This video series was commissioned to celebrate the beauty of our dance, and we will further this discussion in our next episode, focusing on the Western theatre industry and looking back to the black and white minstrel shows. This project was made in collaboration between All Mixed Up, Norfolk Black History Month, and Boundary Productions.
Okay. So that was one of my videos, and I think one of the reasons I felt inspired to make it was, so I'm a dance teacher, and I've been, as I mentioned, teaching African dance workshops, and then it wasn't until I started to think about it and kind of unpicked what I was actually doing. You know, I'd sometimes be teaching a Guinean dance, I'd sometimes be teaching, as I mentioned there, like a dance of Korikori. So, and it was always just being called an African dance workshop. And I found it interesting what words are used to describe things that aren't British, that aren't European, that aren't white, and how there's often a larger grouping mechanism we use to talk about things, whereas things here can be quite specific. So yeah, that was kind of my thought process for that video. I know that I trained in Europe. I trained in Britain, so everything had its own individual name, even though it was all European and mostly white. Everything had an individual name, but as soon as it came to a different continent, it was just grouped together. So that was why I felt really passionate about making that video. And my second video, it's quite self-explanatory, but it's about my experience as being a non-white ballet dancer in, you know, like as a child in a really local situation.
It's hard for a young black child to go to ballet class, noticing that they're the only one that looks different, noticing that the pink tights and shoes look strange covering their dark skin. Their hair can't easily go in the same style as the other students, so again, they are different, they are other. That's a lot to unpack at any age, but at 7 years old, their body doesn't move in the same way because it is built differently, and yet no one is affirming to them that different is okay and different is beautiful. I was the one black child in a group of 100 white kids who couldn't put their hair into French braids, so I was overlooked and unable to feel part of the group. I was the child who got stared at by all the other mums and children because I wasn't welcome. I was the child who was disregarded in the point shoe shop, as I wouldn't ever need them. Now, as a choreographer, I watch my colleague inform a cast of 100 white kids and around 4 brown girls that they will all be wearing flat caps on stage in the production they have been working on for 5 months. I watch as each of those 4 girls starts shifting uncomfortably as they sit cross-legged on the floor. And they look around them for someone to stand up and shout, "Hang on, no, it's not just as simple as just putting a hat on for us, because we have masses of gorgeous curls and we can't squash them down with a hat." I don't shout, but I do tiptoe over to each child and their mother and whisper, "Don't worry, come find me at the end. We can fix this together." Let me set the record straight. I am not the world's best ballet dancer, but I can still do it. And I think my point is that we need more accessibility and visibility. I shouldn't have to book tickets to see Ballet Black in order for my future child to see a grown-up image of themselves. Although I definitely will, because Ballet Black are amazing. If you don't have black dance teachers, then do what you can to ensure black children feel safe and welcome and supported in your dance school, because letting them be an afterthought is so damaging to their mental well-being. P.S. Black dance teachers do exist. This project was made in collaboration between All Mixed Up, Norfolk Black History Month.
Okay. So yeah, and obviously I was watching it and I thought, maybe that doesn't make sense. For clarity, I used to have a massive afro. I know I don't have one right now, but that was like with all the issues growing up, you're being the only person with that hair texture in a dance school. It was just kind of like, everyone put your hair in French braids now, and I'm going, I can't, and I'm 9, and it was hard because I didn't really realize it was an issue at the time. But yeah, I liked that I was able to use a kind of a positive way of speaking about things that hurt me, and also kind of because it's about dance, and I was able to use dance to visualize it. So yeah, that's that one. I've only got one more, but they are all I'm trying to find the right button. Multitasking. They are all on YouTube under Rosie May. So this one is from the second additional series, which is about words. And I do put a funny face at the end. My editor left it in, but it wasn't my choice.
A person who It is naive to think that our modern Western world hasn't been created with Eurocentric ideals, and I will give you some examples. So you have white people, then you have BAME, often referred to as BAME, and these initials mean Black, Asian, and minority ethnicities. If a company is looking to hire someone, and they want to add some diversity to their workspace, they will specify that they are looking for BAME applicants. So the world is split into two. You are either white or you're not. Same for the term people of colour. You're either white or you're a person of colour. We are all colours, pink, brown, or whatever. So we are just perpetuating the idea that white is the norm and that all the other colours are not. White people do not make up the majority of the world, so why should our terminology centre them? Another example is, in the performance industry, when casting, you will have a specific look in mind. So fairly often, a casting breakdown will say, we need a Chinese actor or a black actor. But if they write the word mixed race, most of the time they want someone who looks like me. For some reason, the word mixed race has been taken to mean black mixed with white, to the point at which, if you ever had to distinguish your skin tone on a casting website, mixed race is an option. What they mean is light brown. A person who is mixed Ghanaian, Japanese and Brazilian is mixed race, and they will look nothing like me. But for some reason we forget that there are other people aside from those mixed with black and white blood. The commonly heard statement, immigrants coming over here and taking our jobs, is less likely to be used on my white British friends moving to the US to work in schools, because they will be an asset to the workplace. Or, for example, if European Americans choose to live elsewhere, they are expatriates. But if someone from another country moves to the US, they are called immigrants. The word exotic. Again, the idea that white people are the norm and everyone else is foreign and exciting. I was born in London. That's not exotic. I grew up in Norfolk. That is so not exotic. Sorry, Norfolk people. There are so many other examples, and I can't list them all, but take a look at some other words and see if you think they put white people at the centre and leaving everyone else to be other. I'm done.
So yes, that was one of my videos from the Black Word series, episode 3, random one from the middle. It actually feels really personal sharing them like this, because I made the videos and put them out, and some people commented on YouTube. They were all nice, thankfully. The bad people haven't found them yet, but you know, sitting here in a group of like 6 people and I'm also watching it at the same time, it's weird because it's very personal to me and my experience, and the things that I speak about are personal to me, but they are personal to a lot of other people that I've spoken to as well. But that doesn't mean that everything that I've said is correct and should, you know, be law or whatever. So it's a really interesting experience, kind of watching it with other people, and kind of, you know, it would be interesting later on to hear about like what people thought of it and stuff, if you wanted to. But yeah, those are my videos. It's new and weird for me because, as I said, I'm such a dancer and trained dancer, so using my voice to speak, weird, random. We did acting at college, but it was dance college, so verbally speaking about things that I'm passionate about, it's quite scary. And then sitting and listening to those things with other people, really scary. And also, like, I didn't edit the videos, but I wrote the scripts and like wrote the plan for the videos, all again skills that I hadn't used up until this point. So but from what I've heard, they were useful tools to words, to display things, to make things come across. So I really liked that, although I pigeonhole myself as a dancer, I was able to use lots of different mediums to speak about these issues that I care about. And you know, I don't feel like I want to limit myself to just these. Like, probably even within this workshop, something might be said that might trigger another thought process in me, and I'm like, okay, maybe I'll write a poem. I probably won't, but like, you know, there's so many different ways that we can be activists and use creativity and use art. So I'm really pleased to explore that. So I'm just looking at my my list now. Emilia, did you have any questions or anyone?
Yeah, so I was just so caught up watching videos. Sorry for not asking me earlier. I absolutely love watching videos, and what really came across for me is that have often like an educational focus, which I think is really positive. So it's about maybe introducing people to issues that they might not thought about or might not have ever come across before. You know, like someone from, you know, who's like me, who's like white, they might not have ever stopped to think about the implications of their words or the words that they're choosing. And I was wondering if you had like any tips on how to engage and educate people who might have limited knowledge in regards to a certain topic, or who might be from quite a different perspective, who they do want to get involved and find out more, but how do you have any tips for like sort of educational based activism?
So it's something I'm learning about myself, because I know that there's literally so much that I don't know and I want to know. And so I'm kind of putting myself through this whole educational activism at the same time as putting it out as well. I think something I've noticed in my personal life is how different people's experiences are that really shape, you know, how they think about things, and consciously or not come to completely different conclusions, and both journeys to get to those conclusions are valid. So I think I have to be really careful that I'm not saying this is the correct way to do things and this is the correct answer and you have to do things this way, because it's completely not. And most of the time when it's coming from me, it's probably not completely right at all. It's just based on personal experience. I think doing things at a younger age, particularly so for England specifically, doing things at a younger age, to normalize things, and like I mean nursery, like year reception, year one, like baby early schooling, to kind of normalize the things in society that we want to change. Because I feel like it gets to maybe, I don't know, year 8, and we start having PSHE, and it's like, oh, now you can't be racist and you can't be sexist. And I'm like, but those ideas that are in their head, like girls' toys and boys' toys, if they're just, if those ideals are kind of removed at a young age, I don't know if I'm answering your question, I might be answering a different one and going off on a rant, but if those ideals are removed at such a young age, then those conversations and brainwaves don't necessarily develop in the same way that they would have perhaps in our generations. So I think it's really cool to be kind of doing this and having these chats to teenagers and to people of our age and 20s and adults and whatever. But I think to start seeing actual real change on a big scale, it has to start young. And I don't necessarily know how to do that. I don't think I have the tools. I mean, not to, like, you know, change the government and the school system on my own, but in my head, I think that would be a good place to start, so that we grow up being open to different ideas and different ways of thinking.
Yeah, I think that's a really really valid point. It's something that actually recently I've been thinking about. So I love English. I'm doing it for A level. I want to do it at uni. But I was talking with my peers in my English class, and we were saying, you know, the only books that we have, you know, the only foreign authors that we've studied in the classroom, they've only been American, and it's like this absolute sort of just erasure of voices. And I'm lucky in that, you know, I had a really good school librarian who, you know, brought in those books. I had parents who, you know, were willing to buy those books in. But I do think that it is really damaging, and I do think there does need to be change at an educational level. The other question I wanted to ask, I don't know if there's time, but I'll ask it, is about your how you, when because your video about your experience at ballet school was very moving and powerful, and I was wondering, obviously that's based on personal experience, and I was wondering, do you ever find your activism challenging, and do you have any tips for sort of maintaining well-being as an activist? Because I think, especially for young activists, it can be very daunting, like you were saying about how just now, like putting your work out and watching it with other people, and how that can make you feel quite like nervous. And I was wondering if there are any like tips you had or any strategies that you use to maybe.
So I guess I still struggle with it all in the same way that a lot of people will. So I remember when I got to a certain bit in that script and it was kind of like all falling together, I got quite emotional, and a lot of it was based on things that my white mum, had been telling me, because things had happened when I was kind of too young to remember. So it was kind of that emotional but cathartic experience, kind of putting it down onto page, and then reading it and then dancing to it. It's a, I don't know if treacherous is the right word, but it's a funny thing to do, because we are kind of like playing with our emotions and putting them out there for people to look at, respond to, especially anything that goes on the internet. People can just tell you how much they hate it and how much they hate your hairstyle, and like we're very vulnerable in what we do. And I don't think I've done it enough, and I don't know if I will ever have done it enough to not feel vulnerable and to have a clear answer on, you should do this and then you'll feel fine, because I don't think there is. I think anything that makes you feel uncomfortable, but that you kind of still feel that you want to put out there because it's important to you. I think having a strong network around you of people who follow your same ideals, and even if they don't follow them, they support you as a person and they care about you and they only want what's best for you. Having family and friends and support networks like the Young Activist Network, who can see what your goal is, and whether or not they agree with you, that they can see that you're passionate about it, and that you just want to be protected. I think, yeah, I've said vulnerable a lot, but it is very vulnerable, kind of putting yourself in this position. And yeah, all of this is to say, I don't really know. I don't have the answers. I'm still looking for the answers. I'm hoping someone has them for me, because it can be tough putting yourself out there. But on the flip side, there are times when it feels so amazing to have something you feel strongly about put out there, and people respond positively to you because they agree with you, or they like the way that you did it, or they like your passion, and it kind of just affirms that you're doing something right, or you're doing something that you were meant to do. So yeah, as much as it can have dips, it's like a roller coaster kind of thing. And what I'm trying to do, especially when every time I come to the Young Activist Network, it's normally like I'm trying to take time away and not be fighting racists on the internet at like midnight, because that's extremely unhealthy and you should definitely not do that. And you should just go to bed and read a book and drink some water and put your phone away and just rest. I think rest is like the most important thing that I've learned this year in activism.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's really good as well to have these sort of conversations, because I think sometimes you see what other people are doing on the internet, or you might come across like a video or like a blog that someone's written, and you're like, wow, I could never do that. I think it's really good to remember that they're actually they're real people who are creating this art and this activism, and they have good days and they have bad days. There are some days where I really don't want to pick up a book. I just want to have a bit of a break, and I think it's really good to sort of to remember that. So I think discussions like this are really important.
We were going to talk about things like a way of getting into activism, as not getting into activism, but into kind of using creativity and positivity about sorry, things came up in chat. Maria has a question. Hi, Maria.
Hi, Rosie. Hi, Amelia. I have a quick question, actually. Is that okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, thank you very much. Actually, I truly apologize if this is a space differently, if it's network. Like, I'll ask the question. I really liked your videos, Rosie. They were completely amazing. And actually, the reason that I'm here is because I wanted to learn. What I'm Mexican, and I do. I'm currently in the UK, living and working. But what I used to do a lot is treating with orphan children. That we used to put performances in theater, dancing, writing, and like science. So we used to live in the orphanage for like 3 months, like in summer, and we help them like see the world differently through art, because they are sometimes really like cycled in social problems, for example, hunger or like poverty and really difficult situations. So we used to approach them art so that they could express their emotions that way. And a question that I wanted to ask you, I really want to continue with that when I return to Mexico. I came here to learn about what other people do and how can later it become like an impact in a different way. And I actually, it's because when we approached dancing with the kids, for example, in Mexico or Hispanic culture, are natural, it's a weird word, are dancing, for example, reggaeton, salsa, like it's looked like, or folklore, even folklore, it's looked like a dance that is not for high profile people. It's not an acceptable dance. So when kids wanted to dance, like they used to dance like naturally, like 7-year-old kids, 8-year-old kids, like reggaeton, really like not appropriate movements, when it was like so natural for them. They didn't want to, they were ballet teachers and they were trying to teach them ballet, and they didn't want to dance ballet. They wanted to dance salsa, because it appeared like they had, like when you said that you felt salsa inside you, we saw the children, they had like a rhythm completely different like inside them. So my question would be like, as an external, because I used to try to go and help them, but how could I help them embrace like what they feel dancing, what they feel in the nature of movement? Like, how can I help them so that they don't feel it's wrong? How can I can tell them like what you express like in your art is not inappropriate? Because it's something that even when we tried to put the course, it was like difficult for us. But when you said like the dances are categorized like in white and they don't specify the other ones, for example, sorry, it was the other way around, when they say like ballet, flamenco, and they then just say like another type of dances, but they generalize a lot. In Hispanic culture happens more or less like that. So yeah, it's that, like how can we how could you advise me to help them like express it? Like, how can I yeah, I don't know if my question was clear. I'm so sorry that
No, your question was really clear. I think it's really interesting because I've kind of been through a very similar thing in a way. So without bragging, but my entire career is based on reggaeton, salsa, like all of these styles. And I'm a professional dancer in the UK and perform in Norfolk and in London and around the country with reggaeton and salsa. And I feel like to hear you say that, I kind of just want to enforce that, like, I don't know, like culturally, but here, not really, but in my line of work, it's very not respected, but it's definitely like becoming more and more of a thing. And that I went through college and it was just ballet, contemporary musical theatre, and I was like, please let me do something else, let me do the salsa that I grew up doing and like the Guinean dance that I've did for so long. And I felt really trapped having to do ballet because, you know, a lovely video and all, I don't really like ballet that much. I find it quite boring. So I live and love reggaeton. So I think things that really helped me, because I was in this bubble for 4 years of not doing anything like that. And it wasn't until I came out of it, I suddenly got kind of woken up and back into the world that I thought I belonged to, was, you know, just seeing people do it so like regularly, because it's so natural to have that. It's street dance. It's street dance. It just happens organically. So being surrounded by people that also have similar passions to me about reggaeton and about salsa, merengue, becoming like not a group, not a unit, but just having that kind of security that we're just dancing because we love to dance, and it's the music of our cultures. And okay, ballet is ballet, whatever, it's a useful dance style, but I think to kind of engage with them, that it's so, you know, dancing, it doesn't even have to be a dance style. Like, you just put on a piece of music and you just like wave your arms around and like just dance around wherever, and that's dancing, and that's amazing, and that is completely acceptable. I feel like sometimes we end up, I know I focused my entire video on it, but trying to categorize dancing when it's just like a soul thing and it's a heart thing and you can just feel it and you just love to do it. I was really interested to hear your question because I couldn't, it's not something that I'd thought about, kind of being the reverse. What I see is here, it's like, we have to do ballet. And I'm like, no, I really want to do reggaeton. And I find it interesting that happens in Mexico as well. But yeah, I guess just as much as you can, just reinforce the idea, and kind of like seeing other people do it always makes me want to do it. And to take away it, like any taboo about the dance style not being proper, or like that it is valid, and people make a fortune, white people make a fortune doing reggaeton and salsa that they have taken from our cultures. So, you know, they're doing it wrongly, that's another issue, but they're doing it. Like, and if that's enough to kind of justify that our cultures and our dances are really worthy for doing and enjoying. And, you know, have I answered your question?
Yes. Yes.
Ish.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Oh, I'm pleased. Yeah, I don't know. It was an interesting question, but I'm pleased. I'm pleased to hear other people doing reggaeton and salsa, because I always am.
That's lovely. Yeah. Sorry to interrupt you.
No worries at all. Well, we were just gonna speak about kind of that making activism and creativity. So I think you kind of spoke about it earlier, Amelia, a way of getting these thoughts out and to start kind of talking about just generally things that you're passionate about, and whether or not that's like a thing like racism or sexism or feminism, like just something you're passionate about, and kind of jot a couple of those ideas down, if you wanted to, either where you are, or you can put it in the chat box. Anything ranging from, like, I don't know what you're passionate about, young people, maternity, like eating healthily, anything like that that you feel passionate about. And we can put stuff in the chat as well. Amelia and Sarah. I didn't put a time on this at all, but like in a minute, when Amelia said something, maybe. And next, if you wanted to completely separate from this at all, to talk about something that you feel passionate about, and whether that's like teaching or dancing, writing, reading, I'm thinking of other things, sailing, running, various things. And they don't have to be specific to, you know, they don't have to be connected in any way to politics or activism or anything. While you're doing that, I'm just going to read the things that have been said so far. Young people being engaged in decisions about their lives. I feel passionate about bisexual people being represented, climate justice, how we can make the arts and literature in particular accessible to everyone, dyslexia, ADHD, and social inequality with children. I'm hoping someone's going to come up with an idea that I can use myself when the dancing gets a bit dry and I need to use another creative outlet. Being outdoors, reading, writing, journalism, working with young people, cooking. Cooking is an interesting one, actually. I think, and eating. I'd not thought about that till just now, but just think, like, imagine trying to like come up with a way of sharing something you're passionate about and using cooking as the medium to do that. Like, it kind of feeds into that ignore the pun, feeds into that idea that it's positive activism, and you know, everyone loves cooking, everyone loves eating. You're still kind of spreading a message, but everyone's having a great time whilst doing it. I feel like, I don't know, Amelia, do you feel more susceptible to like the ideas of change when it's presented in a really positive way? I I know the stuff you're doing about the environment has been like in a very positive way.
Definitely if it was food. I think that, yeah, I do. I think sometimes, especially with issues like climate change, I've noticed that sometimes if you, like, all activism is valid, but I think sometimes people feel a little bit like they're under attack sometimes. And I think people feel like they're under attack. They do sometimes tend to double down on their position and perhaps be more resistant to change. And it doesn't work always, but I think there is great value in positive activism in trying to reach out to the other side and trying to establish a positive relationship. And I think that can help sometimes in terms of change. One of my heroes is Sarah Corbett, and she talks about one of her projects. She was trying to campaign to with a big company, trying to get them to pay the minimum wage to their workers. And what she did is she and her team made these. They each picked the board member, and they found out about their lives, what they were interested in, and then they created these sort of embroidered, I think it was like handkerchiefs, and as presents, and sent them to them. And they succeeded in getting the minimum wage. And what people said on the board afterwards was that this was such an intricate gift and it was so well thought out that it really made me feel like I had to support this. And I think, like I said, it doesn't work always, but I do think that, you know, positive action can be quite powerful. And I think people sometimes people don't always like to be told. If we can maybe connect them in a positive way, you know, it can be quite.
Marie, I saw that you said about helping people to find empathy in themselves in their own way. Do you want to speak about it at all? Don't feel pressure to.
No, that's all right. Thank you for reading it and asking. Actually, for example, when I see Amelia, and for example, when I see you, that you express your empathy in different ways, in different artistic like branches, sometimes it's really hard to find how are we gonna face empathy. I don't know if empathy, maybe this is a really philosophical question, if empathy is really inside us or we have to face actually that makes us like wake up. I don't know if we are born with it, but I hope, I really hope, but I feel like helping others to find that thing that will wake up the empathy, like in somehow expressing, for example, you dancing, Amelia writing, making people conscious, like help them wake up. It's something that I feel that all of you that I can see that I really admire what you do, are really passionate about, like just helping people to realize like this is how I encountered empathy and this is how like I'm gonna make a change from now on.
That's really cool. It kind of feels like a it's almost like you're facilitating it, and like people are individually going on their own journeys, but you're kind of doing whatever you need to unlock that kind of like personally, because I feel like everyone will have a different personal journey. I think I'm on the right ones there. Everyone will have a different personal journey for like finding that empathy. I think it's really cool. It's kind of like what you were describing, Amelia. I can't remember the name, but like sending their handkerchiefs, because that's so personal. It's like really locked onto, you know, instead of like a strongly worded letter to send and like just arrived on their desk, they've got this lovely handkerchief. And I think that's like really lovely that they get to have something so personal. And I reckon that, you know, obviously it worked. It made their they got minimum wage. So yeah, a lot of people in chat, it sort of feels like that's what positive activism is trying to do. Yeah, I really love positive activism. I think I would struggle to be negative and you're talking about negative things sometimes, and it's nice to do it in a really positive way. So just to kind of round up before, I thought we could ask like a couple of questions at the end, but if there was any kind of way you felt that you could tie in a creative skill and something that you're passionate about, and find a way that you might tackle something, you don't have to share it, but you can think about, maybe let me look what was said in the chat about creativity being accessible to everyone. So have a think about perhaps what tool, what medium you would use that would engage with the message you're putting out, and also what kind of tool would be appropriate for the audience you're trying to do. I know earlier we spoke about doing you did a storybook, Amelia, for children, and I know one of my dance videos, it has the N-word in it because it was some footage from the black and white minstrel show. Obviously that's really inappropriate for any young audiences at all. So to kind of picture in your mind who you want to talk to, who you want to send this message to, and what creative way might be useful for that. And then if there's any questions at the end, we can answer them. I'm going to do it as well, so it's not like I'm telling you what to do. I'm going to come back in. I know people are still writing and stuff, but just to see. So Sarah spoke about free creative education / opportunities like this, especially using digital tools to remove some of the financial location barriers to creative engagement. Something I've noticed a lot is like financial barriers, making it like, I don't know, sometimes like you don't even know things that, if something costs money, it like doesn't register in your brain at all if that's like inaffordable for you. So doing things like these that are affordable, and also geographically, you don't have to travel anywhere to go to a Zoom meeting. You don't have to have an internet connection, but that's another drama. that was my one. And yeah, Amelia's talking about I'll just read it. What I love about books is that we can reading about characters with completely different lives and life experiences, but we are able to relate to them on often smaller levels. To me, that is what empathy is all about. Not appropriating an experience, but recognizing the validity of that experience. Yeah, I completely agree. I actually have a question about that. I don't need to discuss my one, I'll put it in chat. Um, they were just kind of my ideas. I was talking about maybe using modeling as a form of creativity. But I know I had a question for you yesterday, Amelia, and it was about reading. It's kind of like a two-parter, three-parter question. So about reading, but about how natural it is to you to read, to obtain information and keep it educated on activism and the things that you're passionate about. Obviously yours is literature. And do you kind of feel that there is a pressure to stay educated on the topics that you care about, and so you're constantly like having to get more information? And if you do, is there something that comes naturally, or do you force yourself to do it? I'm asking because I'm struggling with reading at the moment, and a lot of your writing reflects on what you've read. So yeah, whether that is like a natural process.
I this is quite tricky. I think like you said, yeah, a lot of my writing is sort of based on my reading, but it's not something that comes naturally, I'd say. I think I've always loved reading, but the reading that I'm doing at the moment or over like the past year has been more about sort of educating myself and maybe challenging myself and challenging my ideas. And I'm not sure that maybe it comes naturally to some people, but I think for me it's about actively like looking at my bookshelves and going, okay, is what I'm reading at the moment, is this representative, or is this challenging me? And I think that can be quite difficult. And I think also I'd like to say that I'm not always reading like really highbrow, like really like classics or like really long articles. There's some books, I love like Agatha Christie. I love a good murder mystery. I read for pleasure as much as knowledge, and I think for me it's always important to keep that balance, because I don't know if you sometimes have this with your dance, where obviously you're using your dance as part of your activism, but whether I always want to kind of keep that some reading just for me, just for my own personal pleasure and happiness. So I feel like I haven't really answered your question, and if I have, done it in a very sort of jumbled up way, but it doesn't come naturally to me. It's something that I have to actively make myself do, which I think it is good. It's really good to sort of, I'm always trying to read and sort of further my knowledge, but yeah, it's definitely not something that comes naturally to me, and it's quite difficult to do. And also, I do also think it's really important sometimes to just read for the fun of it. Oh, and that's another great question, Maria. So, in terms of like how we can break our context in literature, this is something I have been thinking about quite a lot, because I've, sort of what we were talking about earlier about how the curriculum is perhaps not very representative. I wouldn't necessarily say like there's one way in which we can do it. I think a lot of the time it sort of does depend on you sort of actively going out and researching. In terms of books and like literature and publishing, I think there is sort of a shift. There has been like a shift towards greater representation. So like online, there's lots of stuff out there. There's lots of fantastic articles. I always quite like when I meet new people. I always quite like asking them if there's any books that they love, any books that are really important to them. So yeah, sort of looking online, doing research, asking people, yeah, kind of but it's a great question.
Sarah, do you want to ask your question?
Yeah, thank you. I have a question for all three of you, really, if you all want to answer, about kind of the role of imagination in creative activism, because it just seems to be something that links so many of the things you've talked about. That idea of kind of engaging with art, allowing you to have empathy for people. That feels like that's related to your imagination. But also, I feel like Rosie and Amelia, you've both talked a lot about representation in art and the importance of that. And that also feels like it's related to what people feel like is possible and what they can imagine, especially if you're talking about kind of communicating to like younger children and how that might shape kind of their imagination in terms of the future. And so much of activism feels like it's about imagining something different, and so much of art feels like that too. And I just wondered if any or all of you have some thoughts on that.
I don't want to go first. I'm just here to ask. Maria, do you want to say anything?
Yeah, sure. If I, Sarah, if I understood the question right, it's how does imagination plays a role in activism, right? Yes. So from my perspective, from my experience, I feel that imagination, it's like, it's as you say, like something that it's part of activism because we are yearning to like hope for something better. We dream to see the world differently, and we move towards that by acting, by writing, by dancing. In my case, I'm more a facilitator, so that that type of journey reaches people, like reaches the children in this case. I do write a little bit, but just for myself. But regarding the imagining as activism, I think that for people, in order to express their emotions, for people who suffer a lot, for example, or for sometimes when we deal with difficult emotions and we try to express it and we try to move and we try to change something in a different direction, I think art and imagination is like the kindest way in which we can go. Like first we imagine and then we act. First we put the tools for the people and they can create something, and then they can move with kindness. So I think like imagination and dreaming is like the first step in which we can express ourselves, define what we want to change, and then we move, and then we do something like with kindness. I don't know if that makes sense. Regarding, for example, children, sometimes I feel like when we try to put the tools for them, they resist to face their emotions. They resist to dream because they cannot see hope. Like they sometimes just see like society is gonna treat me bad, society is gonna be really unequal with me, so why do I fight to dream? Like what am I dreaming for if there's nothing? And when we put the art, they just don't, like they don't want to draw, they don't want to dance, they don't want to write. And I feel like when they can imagine first, when they can like see art that other people made and that they created and they imagined, and then they make it, like they identify and they make it their own and they start imagining, then they can start like expressing it and making themselves a change. If that makes sense. Sorry if I talked a lot.
That was amazing. That was a really brilliant answer. I totally agree with you, because I was going to say that I think imagination, even though it's something that's like very personal to you, I do think it's very much shaped by society. And I think that for certain individuals, depending on your position within society, what you can imagine may be restricted and limited. Because like you say, if you're living in poverty, then what you're going to be imagining could be very different from then somebody who's got, you know, more privilege. And I think it is really important to recognize that our own imagination, what we imagine is possible for us as individuals, is very much shaped by society. And so that is what I think why the Young Activist Network is brilliant, because it's about giving people the tools to achieve and to widen their imagination and think, actually, that is possible, and actually, yes, we could achieve that. And that's what I see, kind of what I hope to achieve as activists, because I have a voice, I have a privilege, and I want to use that position that I've been given. I want to use that voice to change things so that others, their imagination can be widened, and also that they can achieve those things that they hope to do. So yeah, that's probably my answer. And I really it was really great listening to you, because it was literally like all the things I was thinking about you were saying.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure there's much else I can add. I was kind of thinking along the same lines, and both of your answers are so comprehensive. And yeah, I feel like I don't need to add anything else. Also, I feel like I've talked a lot today, so I'm going to finish. But I just wanted to wrap up and say thank you very much for coming, and thank you for having me and Amelia, and like giving us this space to share our works. And it was lovely, you know, sharing them and being able to have a discussion about them and hear different ways that we communicate and use our art and use activism. And it was really enlightening, and I was really pleased that, you know, we got to speak about reggaeton and salsa, because it is just my heart. So that just made me really happy on a Saturday. But yeah, thank you very much. Thank you for coming.